afternoon, everyone. How many of you feel you have an active and a purposeful life? Good. Almost everybody here seems to have an active and purposeful life. But I'm going to talk today to you about this simple and powerful way of improving your life to be healthy, happier, and to live longer. My talk today is be active, be purposeful. I will, during the talk, bring in some of my life story and how, by being active, it has helped me to be purposeful. As you know, WHO reports that physical activity has a significant effect on your heart, on your body, and your mind. And I will tell you that it's not only physical activity, but being purposeful makes you even more fulfilled in life. It's unfortunate I can't show the slides, but when I was a young girl, I lived in a house which I was fortunate to have a badminton court in my front yard. Now, every morning, with the sound of the rooster calls and the quacking of ducks, these were also animals that lived in my home. I didn't live in a zoo, it was just my home. And as the sunlight starts creeping in, I would get up, go outside, take my badminton racket and play a game or two. Only after I do that, I would shower, dress, eat my breakfast and go to school. On hindsight, I think that was my workout for the day. And that helped me to focus, concentrate, and do my schoolwork better. At the time, my head hardly reached the lower edge of the badminton net. So from that young age, I had an interest and a love for physical activities. And till today, I continue to do so. Now, when I finished my school, class 10, and finished my GCE O-levels, which was the exam we did then, with a batch of classmates from my class and myself, we got scholarships to go to Pakistan. We landed in Pakistan in the middle of December on a cold winter's day. And you can imagine a girl growing up in sunny Maldives back then, I didn't know how winter feels. And indeed, it was a chilling experience. Everything was new. The food was new to us. The weather was new. The people were new. And the language was new. Now, in about a year or year and a half, due to unfortunate circumstances, a lot of my friends who came with me to Lahore returned back to Mali. But I stayed on. I stayed back. And you may be wondering why. Even I wonder why. At that time, one of my favorite books used to be Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Park. Those who have read the book would know Jonathan the Seagull would defy to conform with the flock and would fly higher. I wonder whether I had some Jonathan in me, that I didn't conform to the flock of my classmates or my friends and stayed back. Perhaps it might be the reason. But more than that, I had a purpose then in my life. A simple purpose. And the purpose was to become a doctor. Strange, isn't it? And I felt I had an opportunity at my hand that I would want to complete my purpose. And so I stayed back. Now Lahore is an interesting city and it had a huge impact on me. I learned a new language, I got taste of new food, I made new friends, but most importantly, I got introduced to two new games, two new sports. One was hockey. Back then in Male, girls didn't play hockey, and I got an opportunity to play hockey. The other was squash, another racket game, and I immediately fell in love with squash, so I said goodbye to badminton and kept my squash playing. And it helped me to be energized, to stay focused, to concentrate on my studies. And lo and behold, I managed to become the doctor I so desired. But at the time I had no clue, no idea why I wanted to become a doctor. And soon afterwards, after becoming a doctor, a voice in my head started saying, I have to become a children's doctor. I have to become a children's doctor. And that brings me to this next chapter of my life. This time I ended up in Sydney, Australia. Beautiful city with the Opera House, the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And there, when I was doing my residency training, and after long hours of work, I still found time to be active, to be engaged in my sports. I would go on the weekends cycling, or sometimes I would go on hikes from Coogee Beach down the trail to the famous Bondi Beach, or from Coogee Beach to the other side to Maroubra Beach. Now, it kept my heart pumping, it gave my muscles and joints movement, and my body to be fit. And that helped me go through my residency. And it managed me to complete my residency. And my next goal, to be a children's doctor, was accomplished. Now, perhaps the nomad in me or something, I wasn't satisfied. I left Australia and I moved to a small city in Emirates called Al Ain, located between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. The Emirates I landed is very different from Dubai or Abu Dhabi you see now. For example, the airport I went was similar to Velana Airport now. But of course, Emirates was very developed, progressing and growing very fast. Now there I worked in a hospital called Tawam Hospital, the government teaching hospital. And there too, I would wait to finish my day's shift, get my car, and go and play my squash game or do my swing and spend time in the gym. I was lucky again in Al Ain. I had a big villa to live in, a branded car to drive, and a great pay package. I think most people would think that's a fantastic life. And indeed it was. But again, I was not satisfied. I felt I needed something more out of my work. Now at that time, a song by John Lennon, Imagine, a verse from the song was ringing in my ears. Now, and I think those who have listened to John Lennon's Imagine would know that he made a fictitious world where the norms of society was non-existent. And in my mind, the verse that was ringing was, there is no possessions if you can, no greed or hunger. So this kept ringing. So that good life I had in Al Ain, I left it. I said, I can't go for no possessions. I needed to work for a bigger cause. And this time I landed in Liverpool in UK, the very city of Beatles and John Lennon. So you can imagine I was very excited. This was my teenage idol, John Lennon, and I was in that city. And there I got to join Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, a very prestigious school, over 100 years old, and that's where I did my PhD. And while I was there in Liverpool, like a flashbulb, a light came to me that I wanted to work for a greater good, for a better cause that would serve the community or population at large. So I chose as my research malaria. Now, you may recall we recently had COVID pandemic and over 6 million people died of COVID across the world in that pandemic period. Now, malaria is one of the oldest diseases, and it kills a lot more than 6 million people. Even the recent WHO report says in 2019 alone, over 400 people died, mostly children under 5. Now, this being an old disease, you can consider that from past to present, how many millions would have died of malaria. The factoid says that perhaps more than half the people that lived in this planet might have died of malaria. Now that's a huge number. Now my PhD days, as those who have done PhDs would know, is tough. To do research is tough, but enjoyable. And during that time, I had the opportunity to travel, to go to many countries in Africa, many countries in Asia, not for pleasure, but for malaria research. And of course, when I was doing the daunting work of writing my thesis, I would get up in the morning and go and swim. And at lunchtime, I would play my squash game. That gave me the energy to be able to concentrate and do my work. And yes, that's when I had completed my PhD. And by that time, I realized what was my purpose in life, or according to my career, or in other words, the ikigai. Now, a talk on being purposeful won't be complete without touching ikigai. It's a Japanese word made of two characters. One is iki, meaning life, and the other is gai, meaning purpose or value in life. So when you put those two characters together, ikigai becomes purpose in life or value in life. So I told you in the beginning, when I became a doctor, the so desired purpose, I didn't know why. But by the time I finished my PhD, I realized why. I knew my ikigai, that I want to work for the greater good, for a cause like malaria, that with my work I can help many millions of children across the globe or society at large. And I guess you would also know from my story by now that this was my purpose. Now let's look at these two things I'm talking about, being active and being purposeful, how they relate. You may know when we do physical activities, when we do exercises, our brain produces the happy hormones, namely serotonin, oxytocin, endorphin, and dopamine. Now these help us to reduce stress, to boost our moods, to enhance our concentration and self-esteem. Now, how much exercise do you think we need in a day to get this going? It depends on our age, on our health status, and of course our preferences, what exercise or what games we like to play. According to CDC, they recommend 150 minutes of moderate exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise and strength training as well. Now we all know when we do exercise, we add years to life and life to years. So by being healthy, we will be able to get energized, get focused, and have a purpose, or helps our purpose in life. Now, let me explain a bit about a purposeful life. Equally like exercise, having a purposeful life is important for our health and well-being. Now, you may remember the story Snow White and Seven Dwarfs. And in that story, Snow White, when she looks into the mirror, will ask, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of us all?" I think all of you would every day, in the morning at least, look in the mirror. I suggest when we look in the mirror, instead of asking who is the fairest or am I fair, maybe good to ask at that face staring back, what's my purpose? Or what's my purpose today? If we have a purpose, it would help us to reduce our stress, plan our day better, and get the work done in a more joyful manner. And of course, being purposeful helps our health, mental health, physical health as well. Now, being active and being purposeful is indeed good for our health and well-being. A meaningful life together with an active life will, as I said earlier, add years to our life, and we will feel fully accomplished. Now, having a purpose in life is not only good for the individual, it works for the society, for the community, and for the common good of the people around you. So, I have told you how I kept ticking during my challenges. It was by being active and by having a purpose in my life. And I hope that with this short talk, I could inspire you all to be more active and be purposeful in your life. But before I conclude, let's take a minute and all of you think of an activity that you enjoy or you like. It can be walking, running, swimming, gardening, some physical activity. Okay? And think of your values in life, your strengths, and how you can bring that together for a good cause. Okay, let's stop for a minute, and then we can open for discussion and bring that out. Now, before I conclude, of course, I thank the organizers for inviting me, and Leela, who is, I think, no need to say it, but an active person, and I'm sure she has a good purpose in her life as well. Thank you. Again, my apologies, I couldn't show you my slides, otherwise this might have been more interesting. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Rukhsana. She used to be our school captain, and we've always looked after her. Use it or lose it. Use it or lose it. Both physical as well as your mental capacities. So how can we, at this age, I'm now 60 and over, to use the physical and to use the mental, keep us going? Thank you.
Good question. To be physically active or to start to be physically active, there is no age. So don't worry, if you're 60 and I was your school captain, surely I must be over 60 and I can still be active. And even today, you can think purpose doesn't have to be all along the same thing as well. Along our life journey, sometimes it changes. And I also found my purpose much later when I was in school and I went to study. As I told you, I wanted to be a doctor. That was kind of my purpose, although I didn't know what was the reason to be a doctor. And it came in much later. So even today, if you think of you, Amal, would have a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills, experience. You can think together, and I'm sure you're doing good work even now. Put together, as I said, your values, your strength, and think how I can use it for the good of the greater good for the community. Physical activity, as I said, it doesn't have to be we all have to run a marathon or win Olympic medals. We can even do simple things as just starting to walk 20 minutes, 50 minutes, 40 minutes, up to 60 minutes. A simple thing like that. But that will definitely boost our happy hormones. We don't have to go looking for other stuff to get ourselves happy. That answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rukhsana. It's just a comment to add to the talk that we are having now. I also see you going jogging in the morning, and I look up to you to that, and I try to take some examples from you too. Yeah, what I wanted to add is the way our community is living now, how our society has changed from previously living in extended families, where the norm was that when you grow old, you expect your children to look after you. But now we all know, people of my age are now thinking, wondering, are our children going to look after us, or are we expecting them to look after us? So I think one of the purposes that many of us will have now, maybe we don't want to be dependent on our children or anybody else. So I thought that is something that is going to be very common in people of our age. So that keeps us motivated to do some physical exercise or other things. Also mental activities. Thank you for the very interesting session.
Yeah, indeed, I think many of us here might be reaching that age where we're thinking that we may soon become dependent on children or on others. But definitely, yes, studies show that it's not only the physical activity we have to do, we have to exercise our brains as well to keep mentally active as well. But of course, when we have a purpose and physical activity together, our brain also will be active. Unfortunately, somewhere we have to accept that we will reach a time when we would need support. But we can prolong, and as we know, being physically active, having a purposeful life, it definitely adds years to life and life to years. So that means we can prolong the time that we will be independent individually.
Thank you for a very interesting talk. You were describing when you were little a house where there was space, where you could play a lot. When you come now to the houses in Mali, you don't find that. And with your experience with children, do you find this a worrying thing? Because do we have space for these children?
Yes, indeed. The children I see in my clinics now, it is worrying to see how obese they are becoming and how inactive they are becoming at very young age. And I agree, most of them live in much smaller space. Of course, we cannot compare to the time we grew up and the benefit of the large houses we had. However, it shouldn't stop them from being physically active. There's a lot of play spaces. There is academies that do sports. There is beach and areas where parents can take them and get them to at least walk or run. So, and I guess, I suppose in schools too, there will be some activities in playground. So yes, not having a space in the house to have a badminton court or a tennis court should not stop them from being active. Activities, they can even skip on the roadside, maybe in the early morning, just by the restaurant, there's a bit of space for children. And we have a sea around, they can go and swim. So there's many ways. When we want to find or to be active or do exercise, there will be ways. So children also, not having space in home shouldn't stop them from being active.
Thank you, Dr. Rukhsana. I'm always very impressed and inspired by you. You have spoken about the purpose of life, which is very important, but my question would be, you have continued to hang on to that purpose. Sometimes even when we feel that we have found that purpose, there are so many interruptions from yourself as well from the society. So give us one thing that we can take home today to keep this inspiration within ourselves, to keep going with the purpose, that we can motivate ourselves every day that this is it, we can do it. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, there might be times it's low, but as I said, when you look at the mirror in the morning, you will see your face staring back at you. Just bring out your purpose. Say it loud to that face, that person looking back at you. This is my purpose, and I would do this. So obstacles, barriers will always come, but we have to find ways. We have to pave our way, our path. If you recall my experience, when I in Pakistan, when all my classmates came back, it was a difficult situation, and that's why they came back. But I stayed on because I wanted to overcome it, and I had to find ways to get to my purpose. So we have to be more determined, more perseverance, and that's how we can come and fulfill our purpose. And of course, everything we do, whether it be, you all don't have to be a doctor or a nurse or a teacher, we can be whatever we do, we should look at it, how it could help the society at large. Little things can help the society at large, to the community. We can start from within home, from family, and then expand outwards as well. So that will give a feeling of good feel when you've done something. Simple thing like walking on the street and you meet, even might be a stranger, but give a smile. I think a lot of people do, but maybe now not so much. A smile is good enough that we will feel good, that person will feel good as well.
Thank you, Dr. Rukhsana, for inviting me here as a member of the public. I want to know your thoughts on a related concept, which is the concept of fitness. Now, there's been this idea that to be fit, you have to conform to a standard size. You have to look a certain way. So, what do you think about that? What do you think about fitness? Because for some people, going to exercise means the end goal is to look a certain way or to be a certain number on the scale. So, I would like to know your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yes, I'll answer the second part first. To be a certain number on the scale, yes, sometimes we may need to aim for a certain number on the scale, because if our weight is far above our age and height, what is required, then we may have to work for that to reach that number. But I don't think being fit or being healthy, we need to work for a certain body shape. We just have to work for endurance and for our cardio to get our heart pumping, and automatically the body will shape in some form or other, and definitely would come to a nicer shape if we keep ourselves exercising. So yes, some people do think that they must build muscles. That is for bodybuilders, of course. But when we do generally the exercise, or what I mean by physical activity, it's not targeting to have your body in certain shape, but it's to have yourself physically fit. And by physically fit, we mean we should be able to do our day's work without feeling tired, lethargic. Supposing instead of using the lift, we should be able to at least climb 3 stairs of steps. So physically fit does not mean that you have to look a certain shape. Yes, indeed. It's a misconception. I think not only youth, a lot of people have this concept that if they don't eat, they will not grow fat. But the reality is, we need to choose what we eat. It should be nutritious. But if we don't eat, our BMR gets slows down. So what little you eat, it doesn't burn up, and it stays on. And 18, 19, 20-year-old students, of course, they need the calories, the glucose to concentrate, and the formula is very simple. We need calories, certain amount for our age and height, etc., mainly for age. So an average adult, for example, a woman would need up to 2,000, but if you're an active person, we may need extra. So we have to put in that. Now, in our day, if we don't burn that, it will deposit in our different organs and in our body, in muscle, etc., and show as fat. So the formula is, what you put in, you burn, you don't create excess, then you will never gain weight. It's just like how we put in money in the bank. What we put, if we don't use it, it will keep on gathering. Of course, in money-wise, we will want to save, not like body fat. but if we spend it, it will not store up. Yeah. So yes, I know a lot of young people think they shouldn't eat, and that will keep them thin. But then they are doing more harm to themselves. And indeed, I agree, perhaps we have to make them more aware, and they might need to have more talks, somehow in even school curriculum, somewhere these things should come in. Any more? Okay, thank you for bearing with this talk.